Hey there, nerds. Jimmy Palmquist here for Two Nerdy Dads, and with me, as always, is Jason Applegate. Say hey, Jason.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
So we are up to a beefy episode 31.
Really?
I know.
Uh,
Crazy,
Soon we're
huh?
going to be at episode how old we are, which we
Woo,
won't
but
say
we
what
are.
number that is.
That is 31. That's where we are in life.
That's right. I forgot.
Sadly, we're not close. Although we're closer now than when we started, so that's cool. Yeah.
This is true.
Anywho, so kick us off, Jason. What are we talking about today?
Well, we got to get caught up with some of the big news that happened at the San Diego Comic-Con that we haven't had a podcast since that happened. So we got to catch up with some of that. And I want to lead up right off with the Batman versus Superman trailer that they released. And I want to hear what you have to say about it. And then I've got this whole sort of conspiracy theory of what I think the plot's going to be based upon that trailer, which I'm sure is like way off, but it's my theory anyway.
I can't wait to hear your theory because my opinion is DC may have done the smartest thing they've done yet, and that is to release a really crappy trailer that was leaked and it was awful. So then they put out the HD version. Then when we finally got the Comic-Con one, it looked like, oh, good, now it looks good. It fooled us because, in my opinion, it still looks awful. I don't think it's good. It's like,
Yeah.
So wait, we got a grumpy Batman,
Yeah.
very little Bruce Wayne, and there's a lot of fighting and everybody's angry. Oh, and I'm sorry, some worshipers. I'm like, this looks stupid to me. I'm not impressed. I think the use of Wonder Woman so far looks stupid. Definitely the use of Lex Luthor looks really stupid.
Yeah. That part.
In fact, the only thing I enjoyed about that trailer was it opening up and it had Holly Hunter. And I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't realize she was in this. Awesome. And that was about it.
I hear what you're saying, and I think I think you've got some really good points, and you're echoing a lot of nerds out there that have the same criticisms, and I totally hear you. But that's Snyder for you, is he's just dark, and we saw that with Man of Steel, and I think a lot of people want to see. I read a really good I don't remember if it was just a post or a Facebook post or if it was a full-fledged article, but I think it was a full article, and it was about how Superman, they keep wanting in Man of Steel and now in this movie to portray him as like identifiable to humans, as like we want to show a conflicted so that you have somebody that you can relate to. And the point that he made, which I thought maybe he was really onto something, was that the best Superman stories aren't the ones where he's conflicted. They're the ones where he is this being with godlike powers, but he's just one of us. Like, he's just a regular guy, and he could be a total you-know-what if he wanted to be, but he's just a good guy because he had good parents and he had a good upbringing. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that being a character that we identify with? I think he's onto something there, and I think that's pretty good. He also pointed to All-Star Superman as one of the best Superman runs, and that they really captured that with them. And so
Wait a minute. So you're telling me he hasn't read the blue-red streak energy? That wasn't the best run of Superman ever?
I think maybe that was
joking, nerds.
That was a close second, I think, in his opinion. No, but I thought it was a really good point about Superman the character, because I've never been a huge fan of the character because of a point that he made is like everybody thinks that Superman's just this Boy Scout and therefore he's boring. And then he went from there saying like, look, no, he's not. And I really liked what he had to say. And so I thought it was interesting. But I also in my mind wondered, that's Christopher Reeves. That is Christopher Reeve's Superman, which I love Christopher Reeve's Superman, but we've had that Superman. If we try to do that Superman again, it's going to be Superman Returns, which bombed. So whether you like it or not, I think this is the way to go with Superman for now. and let's see, maybe out of this, he becomes that all-star Superman type, where now he's comfortable with who he is, and he, in the Justice League and further movies, he becomes that beacon, that ideal that everybody else tries to aspire to. Because somewhere in this film, they have to, I would imagine, do the old stereotypical superheroes meet, scuffle, and then figure out who the real bad guy is, and then go that direction. I'm guessing that's what's going to happen, and I'll get to my whole theory on the storyline. But I totally hear what you're saying about the dark and grim Superman. The one thing that I really liked about the trailer was showing, I thought it was cool that Bruce Wayne was in Metropolis when Man of Steel happened, and you get to see it from his perspective. And if Man of Steel wasn't, if you didn't think Man of Steel wasn't drawing upon the atrocity of 9/11, you better now. Because after seeing that trailer, it was from the people on the ground's perspective, from the people who had the cameras on September 11th and, were running, filming people running from the dust as those real life heroes went running into it, to save people. And I know that Man of Steel got a lot of criticism for sort of sensationalizing and drawing upon this sort of, this cultural phenomenon, this cultural, something that just kind of would strike a chord with an American audience. And a lot of people said, you're exploiting that. And I don't know where I stand on that idea, but if you don't think it's derivative of that, if you're like, no, that wasn't it, I don't think you can make that argument now, not with the way that they've shown it in the trailer. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't think Snyder's necessarily like exploiting it as much as saying, hey, this is something that happened to us as a culture, and I want to draw upon that and see what, put that into the movie. Is it like you're saying, is it, remember the goofy DC quote of like, we're not making superhero movies, we're making movies with superheroes? I wonder if they're going too far in that, like, well, we're going to make this like real and it just happens to have superheroes in it. Excuse me. And if that's the case, they certainly are going in a different direction than Marvel is, because Marvel is just saying, hey, let's have fun. These are superhero movies. Let's have fun with them. And I think that's a good thing. And I think it's successful. And DC's got to be careful that they, that they don't, I don't know, just keep making bad movies. Because Man of Steel was okay. I think it was necessary for what we needed to do to reboot Superman. I'm hoping that this is a lot more like Dark Knight Returns than Man of Steel, maybe. I don't know.
And that's my biggest fear, is that the things I loved in Man of Steel, which were the flashbacks as Superman's trying to discover who he is, Clark, I should say, discovering who he is, scenes with Kevin Costner, scenes with Russell Crowe, fantastic. Zod, fantastic. As we got into just the lengthy fight scenes, especially the one at the end, it's like, done. Can we move on, please? And that's where I feel like Zack Snyder took the success, the financial success of Man of Steel, and was like, oh, we got to amp it up. So unfortunately, he made it more Zack Snyder. And it's like, no, dude, use some of the other things that I really liked in like Watchmen or Man of Steel or even Dawn of the Dead. Love those. But it seems like he went the other route and used more of the things he really likes. And I'm afraid that all showed up in the trailer, and that's what this movie is going to be 2 hours of. I'm like, ugh, not enthusiastic.
That trailer seems to be pushing that. That's the case. As far as the storyline, what I think is interesting about it is that, and again, to go from the sort of like, what if superheroes were real kind of an approach to it, is if there was a Superman and the events of Man of Steel happened, then what it indicates is happening in Batman versus Superman seems to be a pretty natural progression, that the government would want to, hear from this person and hold them in some way responsible for what had happened, that there would be a group of people that would worship him, like he was some sort of a god, and there would be people that would be afraid and would hate him. And that's been, I don't know how much the worshiping Superman has been part of the comic book storyline, but Lex Luthor's hatred of Superman stems from the idea that here's someone who's more powerful and I can't buy him off, kind of a thing. So, I think that sort of makes sense. Whether it plays well or not, I don't know. I guess we have to sort of wait and see. But for me, it just seems to be a logical progression from the first Man of Steel movie. And so if this isn't a success, maybe it's because of their whole scheme and what they're trying to do. So I don't know. I do also have to say that Ben Affleck as Batman, I'm starting to buy into it a little bit more, the more that I see him. I love my favorite part, two favorite parts in it were when Batman is hanging from that cliff and he grapples off to the side and he just whoosh, sweeps away. I just was like, that was cool, because that was Batman animated series, that was, from the pages of DC Comics, and you didn't really get that with Dark Knight, Return, or Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight and Batman Begins. You didn't get that's rooftop to rooftop Batman. And I was excited about that. And the other thing is, I don't know how she fits into the storyline, and I'm going to take a guess at it, but seeing Wonder Woman block something with her bracelets and the big explosion, it looks like they're going to give Wonder Woman her due as a kick-butt superhero. I know a lot of people that I follow on Twitter that are big Wonder Woman fans are kind of tired of the Sword and Shield Wonder Woman and want to get back to the lasso Wonder Woman. And so this isn't going to be that, but it's going to be cool to see her kind of kick some butt and hold her own, with the other two big guys.
That will be cool. And I guess one of my other problems is with this storyline that I'm working out in my head is, when is this taking place? Because it appears Batman is established as Batman because he's an older Batman, and that's what I believe we've heard this whole time. Yet Superman is new at this. He's just figuring it out, coming into his own. So I guess I don't understand that timeline. Is that DC told us Superman is sort of the first, and he's opening up and allowing other superheroes to know he's there, and they start coming out of the fold. So maybe it's more that Batman's localized Gotham so that not many people knew what he was doing. But with Superman, like you said, sort of this 9/11 event, it went worldwide. Everybody knows, and now they know that there's a superhero out there. And don't give me the argument that, well, yeah, but Batman doesn't have powers. It's like, it doesn't matter. If Batman is around, it's like Bigfoot. That rumor will get out. People will try and find it. So I don't understand exactly the timeline they're working with here with the things they have said. And maybe this is part of my problem is they said these things early on when they first announced Batman versus Superman, Comic-Con 2 years ago, I think it was. And then over time things have changed, but they haven't really told us that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think that where it might make sense with regards to Batman, excuse me again, is that with his story is he's always been mythos. It's always been he's in the shadows. That's part of how he fights crime, is that he's sort of a tall tale, that he is more of your imagination than there. I mean, he operates at night. He has a mask. He keeps secret. That's the Batman I think that they're running with, is that he's been around, but no one thought he was really real. He's like the boogeyman, And so, is there, even the bat symbol, the bat signal, I mean, maybe that was just, people just thought of that as like, that's just a way to perpetuate the myth that he's somehow out there doing something. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays. And I do think that Superman being one of the first super powered heroes that reveals himself, brings out Wonder Woman, brings out Aquaman. Now, though, and those two beings are from secret parts of the earth. You know, they're from Themyscira and from Atlantis, which are these mythical places. And maybe Superman coming to the forefront somehow brings those two characters out of hiding as well. Whether they're forced out of it or they come out of it because of him. I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see that. But I hear what you're saying.
I will say, at least it garnered positive or negative. It got discussion. Whereas Fantastic Four, I don't think anybody cares.
No, I think a lot of people have given up on that and are just hoping it isn't as bad as everybody thinks it's going to be. But if it is, we're just going to be kind of like, okay. Do you honestly know anybody who is a Fantastic Four fan? Like they just live and die with the Fantastic Four, that their favorite superhero is the Thing or Reed Richards, you know? I mean, we all sort of like pay tribute to, like, I acknowledge that the Fantastic Four is, you know, has its place in comic history, and I kind of like the Human Torch, and the Thing's kind of cool, but aren't those just the baby boomers that are Fantastic Four fans? I don't know. What do you think?
No, not at all. As I told you, I'm still reading through Civil War, Marvel's Civil War.
Yeah.
And the best parts of the Fantastic Four are the fights between Sue and Reed.
Yeah.
And that's about it, because Johnny's in a coma or whatever, and the Thing is just the Thing doing goofy things in France now. It's like, I don't care. Get to something else, something more interesting. So no, I think that might be a big part of it.
I think that their storylines, when they were their best, were when they were about, like, it was a story about a family. Like, this is a family of superheroes, and it's like, I mean, The Incredibles is the Fantastic Four. You know, that's who they're based off of. But I feel like the only people who still even care about the Fantastic Four are our, you know, people our parents' age. Nobody from our generation or even, you know, the next generations afterwards really care that much about these characters, except for by recognition. The thing that I'm the most ticked at, to do a little sidetrack on that, is Dr. Doom. Can someone please just get Dr. Doom right? He looks terrible. Why do we have to have a Dr. Doom that looks like he's got a disease and that's why he's, you know, got metal on him and stuff? I just don't, I mean, I don't know what the storyline is. I've just seen the one video of him, but he looks stupid. Just put him in the mask that inspired Darth Vader, you know, like that. Like, that is what he is. Put him in the green cape, have him wear the metal mask that hides his scarred face from an explosion or something. Go with that. Make him Phantom of the Opera-ish, but like, just make him that dude. Why do you have to sci-fi it up and make it stupid? It just drives me crazy. Because he's the coolest part of the Fantastic Four, really, is Dr. Doom as a villain. He's great.
Well, since we are talking about Fox, I don't mean to jump ahead because I know our list.
Yeah.
I jumped it, but since we're talking about Fox, let's talk about another stupid costume.
Right?
X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh my gosh.
I'm mad at this because I love the X-Men. And
Yes.
you know, one of my favorite storylines is Age of Apocalypse. So when Entertainment Weekly showed us the photos of Bryan Singer's X-Men Apocalypse with Apocalypse, holy crap. I'm sorry. What did you think, Jason?
You know, I saw tweets where I never watched Power Rangers, but people were showing side-by shots of him and some villain from the Power Rangers, and I was just like, yep, that's pretty much it. And then others were shaming him by showing pictures of like Apocalypse at cosplay, you know, at different Comic-Con convention. And it's like, it's a shame when you're outdone by, you know, just this guy who made his own costume. And it's like, what is going? Could it be any worse? I saw another one with Prince's head morphed onto it because he's all purple. I just was like, that's good stuff. It just looks bad, and I don't see how they can fix it.
No, unless CG, unless there's some element of CG to it that obviously we can't see. In fairness, I will say when they released photos of Days of Future Past and we
Hmm.
saw the costumes, specifically Quicksilver,
Hmm.
I was really nervous because I thought that looked awful. But when it came time to the movie, okay, no
It
big
worked.
deal. Granted, Quicksilver had a very small role in it. Awesome
Right.
role, but small role. But seeing Apocalypse, I had no problem with Psylocke. I thought she looked great. I think what's her name? Olivia Munn looks
Yes.
fantastic. She's great, gorgeous. I think Jubilee is still a waste of a mutant and an awful, silly power, but she's there and she looked like she does in the comics back then. So
Yeah, I didn't
that's
see that image of her, so
she
guess I
looks
didn't
just
miss
as
much.
like she does with the sunglasses and the
Okay.
yellow coat.
The yellow coat.
Yeah, she looked exactly like she does in the books. It's weird to see I forgot her name, Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones as Jean Grey. It's just weird
Yeah.
because we are
Yeah.
familiar with a
Because you're
different
so
Jean
used to
Grey.
Famco, you know?
Yeah, and then the same thing
Gorgeous.
with Scott Summers. Just
Yeah.
strange. It's like wait, that's James Marsden. What's going on?
Right.
But
Right.
I have no problem with that. The only thing I have a problem with is Apocalypse.
Yeah, he looks really, really bad. He does. And on a side note, I love seeing Storm with the Mohawk. That is my favorite Storm. I love Storm with the Mohawk, and I do have to give creds to the costumers for going authentic with the comics because you're exactly right. Like Psylocke looks exactly like she does in the comics. I felt like the picture they took with Storm and Olivia Munn as Psylocke and Apocalypse in the middle, the big one, was a really
Yeah,
bad picture for Munn. I mean,
yeah.
Olivia, if you're
But
watching,
yeah, yeah, I agree.
like you're gorgeous, Munn. I know you're watching us right now, and we got nothing against you, but it like they took it at a bad time. Her eyes were kind of off, like she was looking off to the side. Like I wonder if she was maybe getting direction or something because she has this sort of look on her face, like she looks as disgusted as we are about Apocalypse's costume. Maybe that's what it is. She's like, really, this is
That's
Apocalypse?
funny.
But
Yeah,
I'm
you never
excited to
do.
see her because she's such a great um nerd, herself, and she's such a huge fan, and it's cool to see her get to take on that role. And I know she's got acting chops because she was great in the Newsroom. So I'm excited about
Sure.
those things. But oh my gosh, that Apocalypse looks just terrible.
Now the storyline is obviously about Apocalypse, but I heard a cool rumor because they're speculating that Storm is one of the Horsemen,
Hmm.
and that Apocalypse replaces the Shadow King in some respects,
Hmm.
and sort of converts Storm as to get her to one of the Horsemen. I'm like, you know what? That's interesting. Storm and Archangel as Horsemen. Interesting. I wonder if Wolverine's going to play his part and be a Horseman.
I don't know. I mean, that picture has the three of them sort of stand. They don't seem to be standing against each other like they're about to go into combat. They all seem to be on the same side. So that would mean that maybe Psylocke's one of them too. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I haven't heard anything about storylines at all. But yeah, we had
Yeah.
to definitely talk about that. So
So let's get back to DC, and
yeah.
you go ahead.
Well, real quick, my theory on the Batman Superman is, and I don't know what you think, but you saw all those people that Batman's fighting, and they have the little S insignia on the shoulder, like he's got
Sure.
his own army. And in one scene, you have Superman coming down the middle, and they're all sort of bowing to him. And so one theory could be that Superman actually has this whole army, and he sort of just gets wrapped up into this cult and thinks, well, yeah, this is a great way to do it. But I think it's the other way around. I think what's going on is Luthor is actually playing both sides, playing Batman against Superman, but he's befriending Superman sort of like a Judas, and saying, yeah, like, hey, let me help you out. I'm going to have this. And in my opinion, I think Superman is saying, stop. I don't want this. And when he comes walking down and those guys are bowing to him, I see that scene as him later confronting Lex and saying, this isn't what I wanted. What are you doing? And then that's when they both join forces and turn against Luthor. But by that time, he has his kryptonite and he has his own machinations that are in effect, and they join sides to have to fight him. How Wonder Woman factors into all of that, I don't know. I think it would be awesome if Batman knew about Wonder Woman and like got a hold of her and was like, hey, I need your help because this guy's like way more than I can handle. That would be cool. I don't think that's what's going to happen. The only reason I thought that would be cool is that it shows Batman with the bat signal. And I saw this great meme and they said, you know that it's for real when Batman has to call on Batman for help because he's standing right next to his own symbol. So he's calling for somebody. I assume he's probably calling for Superman to like, you know, come meet me here. This is where we're going to throw down. It's like, this is the flagpole we're going to fight at.
Well, I wonder if Wonder Woman, Diana, has a day job in the government.
Yeah, it's kind of implied something like that.
Yeah, and that's where she's part of this. We need to interview, find out more about Superman because he's a real threat. And then all this stuff comes out. She's like, well, I guess I got to be less
better put on Wonder the bracelets. Woman. Yeah, I better put on the bracelets. And I have to say, Godot looked pretty good. You know, I thought you know, a lot of people criticized her for having the wrong body type and stuff for that, but I feel like she's holding her own pretty well. As long as we don't get too much cheese, like from Watchmen, where you have too much of the like glamour shot of like, look at Wonder Woman, you know, like let's just keep, just do it. Let it be what it is. So I don't know. I was more encouraged by the trailer. You are definitely more of the opinion of like, no, we're all being fooled here. And that could be the case. I'm just hopeful that it's better than what we thought. Speaking of DC and hopeful and better previews, and wait a second, let's not jump too soon on this. Suicide Squad was, I mean, you talk about leaking. Like that leaked really late, even with San Diego Comic-Con. There was the first video I had seen, it looked like someone was sitting in a coffee shop and it was showing on the television screen like at a, Buffalo Wild Wings kind of thing, and he was just filming it from there. But they eventually released it. What were your thoughts? Any thoughts at all on the Suicide Squad trailer?
Well, first, I am so tired of these leaked trailers. Just send them out. I'm so tired of seeing half the screen at a weird angle with people talking, and it's just let us all see it. Show it there at the convention. That's fine. If you have excitement, then let us see it. It's so like ridiculous.
10 minutes later, just send it out.
I know, right? So ridiculous. But I think we need a lot of Harley Quinn, very little Will Smith, Deadshot, and all the other guys sprinkled in. Cool, and Joker was cool. That's what I thought. I thought Harley Quinn, I was really worried about that because you and I grew up, and when I say grow up, we were in our teens, on Batman animated series.
Yep.
Phenomenal. Yep. Fantastic. Probably the best stories Batman has told, definitely on TV. I can say that unequivocal, but maybe even better than the movies, some of the movies as well. And Harley Quinn was born in the animated series. That's where she came from. That was her origin. She was a part of that. And her origin story, phenomenal. I love it. I love how she came about. Mm-hmm. I was really worried when they announced her, worried when we first saw her. I'm like, oh, man, I hope they do this right. I hope they treat her right. Seeing that trailer and those preview shots, man, I was wowed. Fantastic. Thrilled with that aspect of it. I really enjoyed her.
Honestly, if she isn't featured in it, like it's showing, it seems as though she will be. That she's kind of a central, like they're going to give her a lot of screen time. In other words, that trailer seemed to indicate that. If that doesn't happen, one, it'll be disappointing, but two, she's going to steal the show anyway. And she might eclipse Black Widow as a female superhero on screen, of somebody that people are really excited about, because they have the potential to. She's an intriguing character. The little that I have seen was phenomenal. It fit one with who we think of as Harley Quinn. What I really hope that they do with Harley Quinn is that they capture that combination of sex appeal and innocence. Because even in the animated series, she had a little bit of both. I remember watching some of those episodes and kind of going, wow, they're getting a little adult oriented here. There's some innuendo, particularly when she teams up with Poison Ivy. They're suggesting a sort of romantic relationship there, and you're kind of like, And it seems like from the trailer they are doing that. She does have a little girlishness with her when she's hanging upside down with her legs, and she's sort of twirling around. That suggested to me that she's going to be very playful. And I hope that they keep that. Keep her crazy, keep her, a little bit scary, a little bit unhinged, because that's what makes her sexy. But keep her girlish too. Keep her, fun-loving. That's what we want to see with Harley Quinn. And so I hope that they continue to do that because I think she'll steal the show. I really do. I hope she does because that means it'll be a good movie.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm pretty impressed with the small snippet we saw at the end with the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure, but it seems like they're going from, and I saw this in a meme, TV show. Who played him in the TV show?
Cesar Romero.
Yeah, Cesar Romero. Goofy, fun-loving, as the TV show was.
He's the clown.
Yeah, exactly. To Jack Nicholson, a little less lighthearted, fluffy clown, but still goofy.
To
Heath Ledger, who was darker, little insane with his anarchy and all that stuff, but clearly he was there smart enough to have those plans set and outwit Batman and the police department. To now Jared Leto, who just seems to be sadistic.
Yeah, I saw a great meme that was all of those Jokers, and it was, the clown, and then the gangster, the anarchist, the psychotic, and I think that's good, and they're all different elements in different ways that Joker has been portrayed. And as long as we don't have his face peeled off, which was the only part of the Snyder version of Batman. I love Snyder's Batman. Scott Snyder, I'm speaking of. But that was the one part I was just like, really? That's where we're going?
Well, that's interesting because I'm not sure that was a Scott Snyder thing.
I don't think it was. I think it was from Detective
Comics. Happened in Detective Comics. Yeah.
And he had to roll with it, so I shouldn't put that on him. But it was the only aspect of it that I'm just like, no, thank you. But anyway, as long as it doesn't go that far, I'm really excited about this new version of the Joker. And he's got to be that way, right? Because you've got to follow up Heath Ledger. And if you're going to do this, you have to do it in a completely different direction. It's the same argument I made for Superman and Christopher Reeves. You have to go in a different direction. Is everybody going to like it? No. But it might still work. And I'm guessing he's the main villain that the rest of the Suicide Squad have to in some way kind of stop, I would think.
Yeah, and I think that's the funny part is, we've been talking about them for 5 minutes now or so.
Yeah.
And the character I mentioned was Deadshot, who I find, it's Will Smith. I like Will Smith as an actor, but it's just, he was annoying. He was like, he had a couple lines, and one of them was something along the lines of, well, I guess that makes us the Suicide Squad. And I'm like, of course they have him.
Yeah.
Oh man, and it's just like, just put your mask on, Deadshot. And
he looked cool with the mask on. He did look cool in that scene. Yeah, and it's a classic costume. I remember seeing that as a kid. With the one eye, thing, and he's shot from the wrists and stuff. And I was like, who is this guy? He's cool. I really like this guy. So maybe they just need to keep his mask on and not have him talk so much. Maybe he'll be all right.
I would enjoy that.
Cool. So two previews, both by DC, that we're kind of hopeful with, but still have our reservations. The other thing that came out of San Diego Comic-Con was the Star Wars behind the scenes. I think of the three of those things, that was the coolest.
It was definitely the coolest, and it just shows once again, Disney, by way of Lucasfilm and Marvel, has their act together. I mean, when you think about it, I don't think anybody expected this behind the scenes thing. And when you think about it, it's like, okay, if they had another trailer, we'd all ooh and ah. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh, okay, more Star Wars footage, more X-wings, more TIE fighters, more stormtroopers, shots of the cast, all that. You know, what can you really do? Well, they took a little left-hand turn and wowed us by doing behind-the-scenes stuff, giving us those little snippets of more footage that we would want, but also showing the actors hanging out, showing JJ on the first day of shooting on, I think they were in Tanzania or Tunisia again, Tunisia. No, what's his name? Shoot, Shaun of the Dead. Why can't I think his name right now?
Simon Pegg.
Thank you. My goodness. Simon Pegg talking about it. You know, this makes his day. And you see Peter Mayhew. You see Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher. Mark Hamill is the one who's talking in the beginning. And it's just so touching. You're like, yep, they beat everybody. They could have just shown footage, yet they went above and beyond and beat everybody else's trailer.
Whoever Disney's publicist is, or are, I'm sure there's multiple of them, like they are earning every dollar that they're getting paid, because that behind the scenes was nothing but a public service announcement to nerds saying, this will be nothing like the prequels. Don't worry, we got this. Because everything about it was saying that. They kept saying, we've got, you know, and I think it's and I also think it's a good way to go, is we've got 1 foot in the digital age and 1 foot in pre-digital age. And that's how we're going back to the Peter Mayhew, I think, is the one who has that line of like, oh yeah, we're going back to the way things should be done. And that's what the nerds want to hear, what all the Star Wars fans want to see. And it was a perfect way to play it. And you're exactly right. It captured more than any other new trailer could.
Yeah, it's perfection, and it just can't get here soon enough. That's all I can say.
Seeing how excited all the new actors were too was also cool, because it makes you like relate to them in some way and be like, that's how I would be if I was on the set. You know, you saw who is Simon Pegg supposed to be in the movie, by the way? Is he playing like an alien or something?
It hasn't been said. I think so, because the one shot, it looked
costume.
like he had something bulky, and then he had like a wet washcloth or something on his head to keep him cool. Yeah. So I don't think we know for sure who he's going to be.
Because I love Simon Pegg, and I think it's great to see that he's excited about being in it. So hopefully it's all that they're publicizing it to be. But I think that they're making good choices. Good choices.
Off the top of my head, I think he might be the first actor to span both Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yeah,
I'd have to look harder, because I know with all the Star Treks and all the silly, stupid TV shows, yes, I said it, suck it. There might be an actor that crossed in there, but as far as I know, Simon Pegg is the first one with the movies that has crossed over. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, unless there's somebody who was like an Ewok and then also was an alien in Star Trek. That's the only thing I could think of that would be the other case. But certainly, as far as like holding a central character, you know, in one of the two, yeah, I think you've got to be right. And then he's done other stuff too. I mean, he's in Mission Impossible. I'm sure he's going to be in a Marvel movie. He's playing somebody in Civil War. In Captain America Civil War. Yeah. They said I don't think they've named who his character is, but it's something with regards to, I'm sure he's one of the people who is all about registering the heroes, because it had implied something about the idea that they're keeping track. Yeah. So, I mean, he gets to just play in the nerd world like the rest of us all wish that we could. And it's fun to watch him do that and see that he's enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Speaking of trailers, another and back to DC a little bit here. The first Supergirl trailer, which is a TV show that's coming out on CBS, which surprised me that it wasn't coming out on the CW like Arrow was and the Flash. But the Supergirl trailer came out. It's coming out on CBS, and the first trailer that they released got tons of negative feedback. Surprise, surprise. DC screwed it up because a lot of people were comparing it to the parody of Black Widow's movie in Saturday Night Live, where Saturday Night Live did like it's Black Widow the movie, and it was basically like Sex in the City for superheroes or something. And this real actual trailer for the series seemed to be, the Devil Wears Prada Supergirl, and it was like, it just looked bad. It looked really bad. Then they released another one that I saw in the theaters when we went to see Inside Out, I think it was, or something. And they definitely emphasized more of the Supergirl side of things, that no, she's gonna, save people and do these amazing things and so forth. And then the latest one I saw was fantastic, where the character Kara El, and I can't remember her cover name, her Clark Kent name right now, but comes into the newsroom and says, we can't call her Supergirl. Shouldn't she be called Superwoman? And Calista Flockhart's character, who's basically her boss, says, a bunch of other things, but basically ends with, so if you've got a problem with using the word girl, that sounds more like you're the problem, not that the word is a problem. And I thought that was so, like, that's what we want from this series, is that it's not just pandering to what everyone thinks girls and women want to see on television, that it actually is, there are nerds out there that love comic books and they are women, and just treat it like you would if this was Superman or Batman or whatever. Just have a good story with good writing and good characters, and let's go with it. So hopefully that is more of what we see. That I know that's what I just wrote an article for Nerdlocker. Finally got back on track of doing the feminist fanboy articles, and I chose Supergirl because of this series coming out. And that's my hope for it, is that they actually take, this character who I feel like a lot of times is at least perceived, even if she wasn't portrayed this way, is perceived as nothing but the sexy blonde cheerleader of DC Universe. They take that and say, no, this is, somebody better than that. That is, she's got dimension. She's a person, and she not only makes a difference in her, with the S shield on and her cape, but also is a good person, even as, her. I wish I could remember her. Linda Dan. No, that's Captain Marvel. Can't think of what her Clark Kent is. What's that?
Do they go with Linda Lee?
I think it might be Linda Lee. Yeah.
That's from I'll be honest, I have not read Supergirl. I only know Supergirl from the movie.
Right.
The Helen Slater movie, which I have fond memories. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I enjoyed it, with Faye Dunaway and Mia Farrow and Peter O'Toole. Well, I loved it. And Jimmy Olsen. I don't even know the actor's name, but it was the same one that was in Superman. But, yeah, I enjoyed the movie. So, yeah, that's what she was in that one.
I have Supergirl in the top of my queue, and I'm really excited about seeing it again because as I was writing the article, I was like, oh, I need to really rewatch that. And so I'm hoping that, that this new Supergirl is going to be everything that we want it to be. And what I think is exciting about it is they're still filming it. They're only in the middle of filming episode 2 right now, is what I saw the latest update that I had. And if they're reacting the way that they are to the audience, particularly the female audience, in the creation of it, then that speaks well for it. And I think that's kind of an exciting thing to realize, that as fans, we can influence how these things are going to come about through saying, hey, this is what we want. And people are going to respond to that. And it looks like the Supergirl team is doing that. So let's hope that transfers over in the writing and everything else as well. And I was excited to hear that the actress who's playing her has a healthy respect for the character and wants to portray her as not only a strong character physically, but also, you know, her personality and you know, the way that she interacts with others. So I think it's cool.
That makes perfect sense, because when I first saw the original trailer, I kept thinking, okay, this is almost like the upfronts. I mean, that's when it took place, when they learned that they had greenlit the pilot for Supergirl, and I'm like, this looks
Right.
a lot like they're showing investors what they want. Now that makes complete sense. That they really didn't have a full package; they just had the pilot mainly.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the case. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to check it out. The first time I saw it, I was like, well, I think this just isn't for me. I'm just not their target audience. And then the more previews that they've shown, trailers that they've shown, I've been like, you know, this looks like it'll be pretty cool. And maybe it's something I can sit down and watch with my daughter, which is rare to be able to do. Sit down and watch something with your daughter that's superhero oriented.
Very cool.
Well, I think let's wrap up with the movie that's come out by Marvel since then, which was Ant-Man. And I know you haven't had a chance to see it, but let me start with you and the feedback that you've gotten, because I know you've read the reviews, and you know you've seen the trailers. Are you excited to go see this? Are you thinking of taking the kids?
I'm definitely excited. I think the worst thing I've seen, and this is, I've probably said this before, and Jason knows, one of the worst things about running Nerdlocker is that I read all the reviews, whether I've seen the movie or not.
Right.
So I know a lot of what's going on in the movie, even though I haven't seen it. The great thing about being an old man like we are, wink, wink, is I'm forgetful, and I'll go into the movie and totally forget what I read and just enjoy it fresh.
Nice.
But the worst thing I've read about Ant-Man is that it's the Marvel formula. And it's hard to knock that, because the Marvel formula, whatever that may be, has been awesome to date. So I'm A-okay with whatever Marvel formula they're referring to. I've heard it's hilarious. Paul Rudd is perfect. It's just a great story, and that's what I want to see. I don't know Ant-Man. I can honestly say I've never read an Ant-Man comic book, and maybe the one Avengers book I read that had a crossover with Ant-Man, he didn't just seem to be that big a deal in that book. So I don't know anything about Ant-Man. So I'm excited to learn more. But what did you think of the movie?
I really liked it. I thought I'm not sure what they mean by if what they mean by the Marvel formula is that let's have fun with superhero movies. That's what they do, and they do have fun with it. And they it's self-deprecating. You know, they make fun of themselves a little bit in it, which is nice. And with Ant-Man, you kind of have to do that. It's a little bit predictable, but I think that's okay. What I realized is when I first saw it, I was like, you know what? It wasn't as funny as I thought it would be. And I did enjoy the characters. I thought they all fit well. I did love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I thought he was great. And then I realized when I saw it again with my kids, because I wanted to see it first before I saw it with them, that I was comparing it to Guardians. And it wasn't really a fair comparison, because it just wasn't the same movie. And when I thought the way it stands out from the other Marvel movies is that it's a caper movie. It's a movie about breaking in and stealing something. And no other superhero movie is really about that. You know, it's like The Sting or I don't know. I can't think of another caper movie. Sneakers or something like that. You remember Sneakers from like the late 80s, early 90s with Dan Aykroyd?
River Phoenix and Robert Redford?
Or Ocean's 11, you know, where you've got it's a break-in movie. It's this caper they have to pull off. And if you look at it from that standpoint, then I don't think you'll be disappointed, because it's not as epic as Avengers is or Iron Man and all that stuff. But man, the special effects is awesome. The ants are totally believable. Ant-Man is believable, and I really loved the way they used his powers. I thought it was ripe for disaster because his powers are so sort of silly, you know, that he's this big and yet he punches people and they go flying. But they had him shifting out of big to small to big to small in all the combat sequences that it was really cool. It played with it well. And then when he's small and he's like dodging bullets like they're missiles coming in and stuff, and they're blowing up things around him, and you know, that whole you know, paying tribute back to the old 1950s sci-fi B movies of like The Shrinking Man, where, you know, he's this pig and this cat's like gonna get him and stuff. There were nods to that kind of stuff that sci-fi nerds like me were excited about, but it just was clever. And I had to, when I saw it a second time, I gave it more credit than I thought. The other thing that I thought the first time I saw it was, man, Michael Douglas is just sort of mailing this in. I just feel like he's just there to get paid. And then when I saw it again, I'm like, no, that's not fair. That's just the way his character's written. He's just a very serious character, and he's the straight man to Paul Rudd, and it works. And what made me realize that is, I don't know if you've seen the little Vine or video that they do where they're like going, you know, and they're snapping, they're doing this like clapping thing like this, and then they go ants and they show, it's the goofiest thing, but it was just fun to see Michael Douglas be goofy with Paul Rudd, that I was like, okay, no, he is having fun. And he is, you know, taking the role, you know, seriously, and you know, portraying a character, not just mailing it in, aka Anthony Hopkins, for the last 20 years of anything he's done. So I was excited. I really felt like the second time I watched it, it was better. I liked it better. So when you look at it from a caper standpoint, maybe that helps you to sort of appreciate it a little bit more. And then the little Easter eggs were fun. And then the other thing I can say to everybody is stay through all the trailers. Like they or all the credits, because there's two stingers. There's one, and then like 90% of the people thought that was it. That was the stinger. And then when the credits are scrolling, there's a trailer or a stinger even after the credits roll all the way up that you want to kind of hang around for. Yeah, so make sure you stay for both of them, because it's worth it. I mean, they're not like, oh my gosh, but they're cool. They're fun.
Awesome. I'm glad I know that one, so I can stay.
Yeah, definitely do. And I think that obviously you've got to judge for yourself, but I thought it was fairly kid friendly. You know, it's there's nothing that's really sort of like, there's one part when they're shrinking lambs that my 8-year-old daughter, I was like, okay, I'm going to cover your eyes for this, because they failed to be able to shrink the first one. And so it's like, and it's like a little blob of skew on there, and it's obviously, you know, they're setting it up for you to be like, oh, the poor lamb, you know. And my daughter is going to be particularly sensitive to, you know, animals getting turned into goo, so I was like, you might want to cover your eyes on this one. And after that, she just rolled with it, and my son loved it. He was laughing so hard through all of it. So I think it's definitely capable of being a family movie, but, you know, check it out. There's some violence in it. You can judge for yourself.
I think it's what had me surprised. It was PG-13, but I think most Marvel movies are PG-13.
Yeah, I think that it's a marketing thing, man. If you don't make it PG-13, you're not, people like are automatically going to label it as something that it's not. And I think mostly it was PG-13 because of some of the language. And it does get kind of violent in some parts of it. Nothing as bad, I don't think, as Guardians was, or as Iron Man 3 was, where you had like people blowing up in front of your face and stuff. So, but there's some parts that are sort of like, ooh.
Cool.
But
I can't wait.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what you think of it. So cool. Well, I think that's it. We had a lot that we wanted to discuss, so we can't really get into our, you know, recommendations and so forth, although I can recommend Ant-Man, but definitely wanted to get caught up on some of the big news that came out. And I think we've done that.
For sure. And we will try and do this again next week when I don't even know if you know this, Jason. I will be in your time zone. Well,
really?
maybe. I don't know where you're going to be next week. I'll be in Ohio next week.
Are you? Where? That's awesome. Very cool. Next week I will be back into Iowa. I just had to come into Michigan for a week this week, so I'll be back in Iowa at the cabin. So hopefully we're gonna give it. I'm gonna take the headphones this time because I know last week that was messing me up, and I wasn't on my game as much without my nerdy headphones. And I don't know what the the Wi-Fi is gonna be like there, so it may be one of those that like it's a 10-minute episode because Jason just like vanished off of the face of the earth, but we'll give it a shot.
Well, we have gotten calls, and the 2 calls we've gotten are we need more Jason in headphone, and we need a lot more Jimmy on screen if Jason's Wi-Fi goes out. So what can I say? We'll just have to accommodate.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. And I'll tell my mom to stop emailing you.
Exactly. Thanks, Mom.
Awesome. All right. Well,
all right, nerds. Make sure you check us out on Nerdlocker, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, the interwebs, everywhere. And of course, Jason, take us out.
Have a nerdy week, everybody.